Reiht. This is a cool song by the Beatles. It's on the B-side of Paperback Writer. Came out in 1966. Not a song that I was very much aware of until today, actually. I mean, I was aware of it, but I know I've heard it, but it's not one of their more famous songs, and I don't think it's one of their better songs. But it's still a cool song, and I want to talk a little bit about it, and I want to talk about it in light of Course in Miracles a little bit, and just my ongoing research into the Beatles, which has been a lot of fun, and I've been really going deep and making a lot of interesting connections. I want to share some thoughts with you. I'd love to hear your feedback. There's feedback, on. Oh, by the way, a really cool song on Yellow Submarine. Yellow Submarine is considered to be like one of their worst albums because there weren't that many songs. The Beatles kind of did it because they needed to do this album. They weren't particularly happy even about the film that was made, which I think is a really cool movie that they did. Not that the Beatles did, that someone made the animated film. But the song was by George Harrison, and it uses a lot of feedback, and it's like the considered to be like the epitome or one of the high points of psychedelic rock, and it's all too much, and it's George's kind of his love song to LSD. But that's a song for another time. Rain is interesting because it was during the Revolver sessions, and it's John's song mainly. I think Paul had a little bit of a say in it. Obviously, George does the guitar work, and it's a question whether George was the one that brought the Indian element into the song. I kind of think it was probably both George and John. They were both highly influenced by LSD, and apparently as soon as George started taking LSD, he became very interested in India and all things Indian, and he took up the sitar, and there are several songs in the Beatles catalog that feature Indian instruments and the sitar and tabla, and obviously it was George's thing, but on this song, on Rain, apparently it was John's thing, right? And it might show that John really was leading the way. And so one thing I want to say about John is John started the band, right? It was originally the Quarrymen, and he was the oldest, and he was really the band leader. He was and he was, I think, the creative force behind the band from the start. And I think he really led the others into his thing, right? And he if it weren't for John, the Beatles would not be the Beatles. But it's true that if not for all the band, the Beatles would not be the Beatles. But I think John needs to be given credit. And then later, Paul really took the helm when John was kind of not as available. And Paul, like after 1966 or 67, Paul really took the lead and actually came up with some of the more creative ideas. And even on Abbey Road, I think for the most part, the end of Abbey Road is a lot of Paul's material, although John definitely had stuff in there. But I want to talk about all these things. I want to talk about the best Beatles album. I think the best Beatles album really is Abbey Road. I think it's the high point of their career. It's their closing statement that really sums up the whole thing. I'd have to go through it with you to show what I see in it. Some people say Sgt. Pepper was their best album. Some people say Revolver. Some people say Rubber Soul. I would say Abbey Road. I think Abbey Road is the Beatles at their very best, and a very beautiful closing statement by the band, where they despite all the differences, they came together and they pulled it off. And I've been saying that the Beatles are the band of love, and that album really showed that, right, and brought love to the it brought it all home, and it brought it all to the climax. And they went out with a bang, man. They were on top of the world, and they went out right at the right moment, and good for them. And I think the Beatles are. I think what I've been saying is, they were the greatest. They are the greatest, and their story is the greatest story ever told. It's just another form of the greatest story ever told, right? That's the way I look at it. And I have been doing my research for this book that I'd like to write. Have not started writing it yet, but I've started to bring notes together. It's going to be looking at the Beatles, the deeper message and the spiritual journey and message of the Beatles, which I'm calling the Band of Love, because I think that's a fitting title for them. And what else did I want to say? John Lennon was actually the most well off of all the Beatles. He grew up in a middle class home, whereas the other Beatles didn't so much. Maybe upper middle class, and he grew up on Menlove Avenue, and I think that name says something as well. But to go back to Rain also is very much in line with the deeper philosophical statement that John made throughout the Beatles' career. This is one of the more profound songs, and he's basically saying that everything is really a state of mind. It doesn't matter what's happening outside of yourself. Everything, it goes back to what's going on inside of you. And whether it's sunny, whether it's rainy, it doesn't matter, right? You could feel joy when it's raining. You could be very upset when it's sunny. It doesn't matter, right? The weather does not matter. What really matters is where your mind is. And the song is again, it's not one of their best songs. It's not one of John's better songs, but it's still great. For any other band, it would be a high point. For the Beatles, it was just not the greatest. But and I had never even never really listened to it until today. Really, I had listened to it, but I didn't really listen to it. Now I'm starting to listen to it. So I've listened now. Really, It's All Too Much. I've really have a great appreciation for that song. On the Yellow Submarine, I just talked about it. And then Rain. And one other song, which I think everyone who is into the Beatles needs to know about, needs to listen to, is You Know My Name, Look Up the Number. It's a really cool song. I think this is the last song that the Beatles ever did. As far as I understand it, I have to look into that a little bit more. But you could tell that they were having a really fun time doing that song. And Paul has said something to that effect, that's one of his favorite songs, and they had such a great time putting that song together. And it really shows the Beatles' humor and how funny they really were. And that's another thing about the Beatles that you don't get so much from other bands, or as much, is the humor and the lightheartedness and the fun. The funny and the fun is right there in the music. And I think they had a lot of fun recording some of their songs. Maybe not all of their songs, but a lot of their songs, they were having a lot of fun. What else did I want to say today? I want to read a quote. So my wife actually did this really cool picture of the Beatles that I used for this book, Love Is. This is the third book in the trilogy of books that I wrote. This is like the final statement. It started with "Who am I?" and then the answer, I am love, is the second book. And then finally, love is, right? What is love? Love is. You can't really say what it is. You just, it is. And I talked about, early on in the book, I talk about that song, The Word, which I did another video about. This is John's song, The Word. Say the word and you'll be free. Say the word and be like me. Say the word I'm thinking of. Have you heard the word is love? It's so fine, it's like sunshine. And those motifs of love and the sun, you see throughout almost every album, or every album you see that, right? And the Beatles had, including Rain, right? Rain is also brings in the sun. You see it on Abbey Road. The Abbey Road really brings the sun in big time, with Here Comes the Sun, and then Sun King, and I believe one or two other songs on Abbey Road. But the sun, symbolizes the sun, right? The Son of God, the Christ, the light symbolizes the light, right? And the light brings light to the darkness, and it brings the light and the sound and the joy and the harmony. And the Beatles were known for their majestic, sublime harmonies. Here's a quote from John Lennon. I might end with this quote. And I've shared before, but I'm going to share it again now. It's a brilliant quote that I think really applies to all of us who are on a spiritual journey and maybe feel like we're not doing it right. We feel like, why does this keep happening? Why do I keep failing where I seem to fail? Why do I keep running in circles? Why do I keep doing the same stupid thing again and again? Why do I keep beating myself up? Why do I, do this, do that? So here's what John said. I think that whatever else love is, and it's many, many things, it is constant. It's been the same forever. I don't think it will ever change. Even though I'm not always a loving person, I want to be that. I want to be as loving as possible. So John was, it's like the theory and the practice of love, or you might say, when push comes to shove, most of us fail to be as loving as we would like to be, right? How often do you go through your day and you wish that you had maybe said something different, or you'd been a different way, or you kind of, feel bad about your behavior or your thoughts in regard to someone else, and you're like, I'm a student of A Course in Miracles, and I can be shitty. I can be kind of mean and kind of belittling or condescending or whatever it might be, or putting someone down in my mind, even, if not in my actions, if not in my words, in my mind. And that happens time and again. That's why the Course really is a process and a journey. And I think John was highlighting that, and with this quote, he was saying, love has, love is constant. Love does not change. Love has been the same forever. He kind of says, he says, it's been the same forever. I don't think it will ever change. He doesn't come right out and say it will never change. He just there's a little bit of doubt there, right? Or a little bit of unsureness, right? But I think he's really saying, love is forever. It will never change. What we can do, though, is we can change. We can get closer and closer to what love is. We can get closer and closer to being the loving being that we would truly like to be. And that's the journey of life, right? It's really it's really the only dance in town, the only game in town. Once you get wise to that, you start to see, well, that's what it's all about. It's about becoming more kind, compassionate, forgiving, loving, helpful, in service to yourself and to everyone else, and not anything else. not all the negativity and the judgment and what everything that goes along with that. All of that is bringing you down, and really you want to get into the you want to get on the path of kindness and compassion and forgiveness and love and gentleness and appreciation and acceptance and respect for yourself and for everyone, and the highest respect for yourself and for everyone else. And that's what this book really is all about, and what the Course in Miracles is all about, and what true spirituality is all about, is bridging that gap between what love is and the fact that we know what love is in our heart, but we don't always act that way, right? We don't live love, and we would like to live love. So how do we live love? And I hope the book that I'm going to write, I know, I don't hope, but I know it will be helpful in that regard for those with ears to hear and eyes to see. And anyway, that's all I have for right now for today. Would always love your thoughts, your comments, feedback, and what can we say? Want to end with a John quote. Love is all, love is you, from Abbey Road, from the song Because, right? Love is all, love is you. See you soon.